Like and subscribe right now or these monsters will be in your closet tonight. Beautiful baby ducklings manhandled by EM's disgusting brats. This happened when I was having a cigarette in a quaint country pub garden in the east of England. The place is stunning countryside dotted with local pubs. Everyone knows who is local. Every summer the pubs are filled with rude disgusting Londoners and their brats. Story time. I had been out in the lovely flowered pub garden a few times already as I was drinking beers on a gorgeous sunny afternoon with friends. I chain smoke when I drink. Every time I went out I was thrilled to see this lovely white mother duck tending to her baby ducklings. There were about 7 of them and the pub staff explained that the mum duck comes back each day to get food from the staff members and to chill in the sun with her fluffy ducklings. I am back in the pub with mates when an EM and her 4 snotty, loud disgusting brats enter. They proceed to make loads of noise and generally ruin the vibes. We ignore them. After a while I walk outside for my final smoke and I am followed by EM and her brats. It turns out EM smokes too. We both light up and ignore each other and immediately her brats spot the mother duck and her babies. They all squeal and run over to the birds. To be honest, they were so loud I looked at the mum already expecting her to say something reasonable like calm down guys, you don't want to scare the babies, but instead she just watched her brats fondly. I watched the mother duck panic and try to usher her babies away from the EKs, but they all ran up and surrounded the birds, trapping them all in a corner by the wall. They then proceed to start grabbing at the babies and roughly trying to pick them up. The mother duck and her babies start to quack in panic. Outraged I look at EM and see she is still smiling at her brats as if this is the sweetest thing in the world, so I turn back to the EKs and shout, "Don't touch the babies. Just look at them." EM turns to me with a screwed up face and says, "How dare you speak to my children like that? They aren't doing any harm." I look back to see all the EKs still grabbing at the babies and distressing the mum. One of the EKs is even picking up a baby duckling by its wing. I scream, "Put those fucking babies down now, you little shits." The mum turns to me with a death stare and starts to say, "If you talk to my babies like that again." At this point I look at her with an even deadlier stare and I say in a shaking voice, "That duck is a mother too, and if you don't do something I will manhandle your babies. The way they are hurt." The mother looked at me like she was gonna argue but saw I wasn't kidding. She shouted her brats over and stormed inside. I finished my cigarette and watched the ducks leave the garden looking panicked. When I got back to my table my mates said the women was making a complaint about me to the bar staff. They came over and said the EM told them I threatened her kids. I told them her EKs were grabbing the ducklings and I politely asked them to stop. I denied the threat. They asked EM whether her brats had grabbed the ducklings and she said, "They only wanted to hold them, they wouldn't hurt a fly." The bar staff told her and her brats to leave, and when she kicked up a fuss they said, "Those ducks are locals, lady. Fuck off." EM calls the cops when I wouldn't give any steak to her son. This happened maybe about a year ago, before the whole pandemic started. The weather had been nice, and I had just gotten some sirloin steaks. I haven't used my grill since the previous year, so I decided now would be a good time to try it out. For a few days, a group of construction workers had been busy working on a new house. It's built now, and it's pretty nice. Way too expensive for me though. But it had been hot and or rainy almost the entire duration of the build, and they were working their asses off the whole way through. So I decided to be nice and, after going over to the site, I yelled for them to come get some free food when they went on break. They were incredibly grateful. There were about 5 workers present, and 4 of them showed up for steak while the other passed. I had enough for everyone, including one for me, and we had a nice time chatting and getting to know one another. One was a veteran of the Marines back in the early 80s. He's friends with my grandma now. One was even related to the sheriff of our county. Anyway, amid the conversation, we heard an "excuse me" from the other side of the fence. My neighbor is this middle-aged woman with a super freaky son. He was this stoner influencer who loved to go on social media and post about his fetish for pot, and lived off his mother's paycheck every week while living on her couch. He was also in his mid-30s. EM, entitled mom, GAC, grown-ass kid, CW, 1. 2 construction worker 1 and 2, P, police officer. EM, my son was wondering if he can have some steak too. Me, Sorry, I don't have any left, EM. But you have enough for all of them. Me, yeah, I do. If he wanted some, he should have came earlier, EM. No, you should have bought enough for everyone. CW1, look, lady, this guy was nice enough to cook stay EM. Don't you have work you should be doing? CW2, we're on lunch, mom. She soon left, in a huff, but not before shouting that she was calling the police. I was the only one who heard that, I think, so I asked the relative of the sheriff if there was really anything the police would arrest me for. Of course, he said no, in his words, there are no laws against not sharing. I asked if we should tell her that, and he again said no, again in his words, it would be the most fun they've had on the job ever since they started building that damn house. Note, I actually did have an extra steak. I was saving it for later. Sure enough, after the construction workers went back to the site, who's to show up but a police officer? No lights, so it's a non-emergency, but he parked right outside EM's house. Both her and Gak walked out and I walked out on my own lawn, and EM pointed straight at me. I can't quite remember everything said here, but she was accusing me of discrimination because I left her 30-ish-year-old little boy out of our little steak party. I swear, it was like a kindergarten lunch. P obviously shook it off, warned her to not get the police involved in something so ridiculous again and started to leave, but I said, wait. Officer, are you hungry? P, well, I haven't had lunch yet. Why? May I offer you a steak? EM, I knew it. You do have more steak. I demand you give it to my son, now. P, and I demand you both go back into your house before I arrest you for disturbing the peace and, possibly, harassment. EM, B but. You can't do that. He can't do that. Tell him, Gak, up. I just wanted some steak. EM, officer, you have to do something about this. This man is performing a hate crime on my son. We both actually laughed. P said something along the lines of have a good day and I'll let him into my backyard. I had to give him the steak raw, since he had to go back on his patrol, but we had a good laugh. EM and Gak finally went back into their house, and every time that I see them nowadays, she scowls at me, while Gak just pays no attention. I occasionally see that same officer from time to time, and every time I see him, he asks the same thing. Did you remember to share today? Entitled Mother on an airplane. This did happen before COVID. Okay, so I was on this plane sitting in my specially booked window seat and the flight was due to depart very soon. All of a sudden this extremely tired looking mother and her screaming toddler walk up to my row. This is gonna be a great flight, I thought sarcastically. When the mother got to my row she looked across and saw me sitting at the window seat. EM, oh hey, I didn't realize someone would be sitting here. Say, do you mind letting my child sit there? He really likes the window seat. Now normally I wouldn't have done it, but the mother looked really exhausted and I was willing to do anything to shut the child up. Around 1 hour into the flight I got out my iPad and started watching some skateboarding videos I had downloaded. As soon as the mother saw it she said, please would you turn that off? I don't want my son to become one of those skating rebels. Now as a skater I was used to people thinking every one of us was a law-breaking druggie, but I had just given up my seat for this women. I put it away and started reading my book, a murder mystery that I can't remember the name of. The women then saw this and said, please don't read that, it's all about violence and stuff that I don't want my child to read. Now might I add that her child was around 4Y and most probably couldn't read. Fortunately the guy sitting across the aisle from me told her to let me mind my own business and she did. TLDR, grumpy women won't let me do anything on plane. Thanks for watching. Subscribe and like or I will kill your waifu.